IRS agents will no longer show up unannounced to people's homes like even more aggressive Jehovah's Witnesses. Hunter's plea deal crumbles to dust. Hopefully he doesn't try to snort it. And Florida schools teach reading, writing, and racism? That and more on this week's headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Astronomers using NASA's James Webb Telescope detected water vapor in a planet-forming area near a distant star. Scientists say observing the area could help them learn how water formed on our planet and how life began on Earth, because everyone already knows how life will end on Earth. A multi-university study has found that forced labor may be common in U.S. food systems. Some of this is happening outside of the U.S., but 62% of food items gained through forced labor came from within the U.S. According to the International Labor Organization, there are about 3.6 million forced laborers in the U.S., mostly illegal immigrants. The foods they're most likely to work with are fruits, vegetables, and packed meats. And many of these laborers are children working in hot fields and dangerous factories. And that's awful. And not just because you'd think if so much of our food was delivered through forced labor, prices would be cheaper. It's disgusting that human trafficking is so prevalent around the world, and even in the U.S. It's something everyone should be able to unite against. Unless, of course, they make a movie about it. Then anyone who wants to stop it is obviously a crazy right-wing conspiracy theorist. One target of human traffickers is the large number of illegal immigrants crossing the southern border, or as Vice President Kamala Harris calls them, the what? I don't see a problem here. The state of Texas installed a floating border in the Rio Grande River to help stop illegal crossings, and now the Department of Justice is suing Texas over it. Associate Attorney General Vanita Gupta said this floating barrier poses threats to navigation and public safety and presents humanitarian concerns. Additionally, the presence of the floating barrier has prompted diplomatic protests by Mexico and risks damaging U.S. foreign policy. Texas Governor Greg Abbott refused to back down from the Biden administration, saying, "Texas will see you in court, Mr. President." I don't know why there's so much fighting over this. I see an obvious compromise. If Texas doesn't want people entering the river, they should just set up projectors and play Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. One look at it and people will run in the opposite direction. Speaking of vile, unrepentant monsters that prey upon the vulnerable, the IRS. The IRS is ending unannounced visits to homes and businesses to collect unpaid taxes. This is a relief for those who are worried that 87,000 armed IRS agents would be going door to door to shake down the middle class. The IRS is doing this to protect taxpayers from scammers and to protect its employees after an uptick in threats against the agency from people afraid 87,000 armed IRS agents would be going door to door to shake down the middle class. But if you're worried the IRS won't blood-suckingly collect every penny they can, and honestly, who isn't worried about that, you can rest easy because the IRS says it's targeting high-income tax dodgers and has collected over $38 million in the past few months. IRS Commissioner Daniel Werfel said, "It just shows you how much money is out there in delinquent taxes, and there are so many more cases for us to tackle. There's just a significant opportunity there." And hey, if they're looking for high-income people who skipped out on their taxes, how about all the money Hunter Biden ducked out on that wasn't accounted for in his plea deal? That was a sweet deal he got for some reason. And no, I'm not implying the Biden administration interfered in the investigation of the president's son. There's a perfectly reasonable explanation why the IRS isn't going after Hunter more aggressively. It's because he's paying off his back-owed taxes by selling his art, which he's collected $1.3 million for so far. And it turns out one of the buyers was a Democratic donor that President Biden named to the Commission for the Preservation of America's Heritage Abroad. No one seems to know if she bought the art before or after Biden appointed her. But I'm sure she didn't buy his art to gain favor with his father. No, I mean, it's not like Hunter's ever been accused of making shady deals with people so they can gain access to the big guy. Speaking of Hunter Biden, that sweet plea deal he received was rejected by District Judge Mary Ellen Noreika, who was appointed by Trump and unanimously confirmed by the Senate. She rejected it over a paragraph in the plea deal offering Hunter Biden broad immunity from prosecution in perpetuity for a range of matters scrutinized by the Justice Department during its 5-year investigation. She questioned why prosecutors had written it in a way that gave her no legal authority to reject it. She said, "You all are saying just rubber stamp the agreement. I'm not in a position to accept or reject it. I need to defer." She grilled both the prosecutors and the defense on the agreement and told them to go back and do it again. But the revised version was a no-go also. This was because of another section that Noreika worried would grant her unconstitutional power. The hearing ended with no resolution to the deal and Hunter Biden pleading not guilty. The team has 30 days to come up with a new agreement. So Hunter went in expecting this to be the end of his legal woes, but it turned out it could just be the beginning. How could his legal team botch this so badly? Actually, that's easy. Spend enough time with Hunter and you might not be doing your best work either. Maybe that's what caused Mitch McConnell to freeze up and need to be escorted away in the middle of a speech. I can't tell if we need term limits for old politicians or stronger locks on Hunter's stash. And after the break, Biden vows to veto Republican spending cuts. Welcome back. House Republicans backed two bills that would cut spending in areas of defense, agriculture, and health care. But the White House said if President Biden were presented with the bills, he'd veto them. He'd probably say he has to since we're in the middle of a deadly, expanding heat wave, and the only way to cool it off would be to make it rain. 2 months ago, a government default was narrowly avoided when President Biden and Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy reached a deal. But some Republicans felt it did not cut spending enough, hence the spending cuts. Biden is now saying he'll veto any spending cuts, which means there'll probably be another showdown when the debt ceiling needs raising again, and the problem will be pushed forward forever. Man, don't you hate it when series repeat storylines in the later episodes and seasons? It's just like the last 3 years of The Walking Dead. They find somewhere safe, bad people show up to ruin it, it's overrun by zombies, they find somewhere new, and rinse and repeat. I'd say the House Republicans thinking about launching a new impeachment inquiry on the president is at least something new, but it just feels like a rehash of what happened to Trump. Twice. And just to be clear, they're thinking of impeaching him over possible corruption with his son's shady deals, not for potentially being mentally unfit and saying things like he ended cancer as we know it. The White House also announced the launch of the Office of Pandemic Preparedness and Response Policy, a new permanent executive office dedicated to preparing for and leading during the next major pandemic. While that's all well and good, it wasn't just the pandemic that was the issue, it was the horrible response to it by practically everyone in and out of the government. They should also launch an Office of Pandemic Response. And while they're at it, how about the office of holding Andrew Cuomo responsible for all those grandparents his policies murdered? I volunteer myself to lead it. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk revealed that Twitter is no more. It's now simply known as X. This is Musk's first step towards creating an everything app to rival China's WeChat. And by calling it X, it's also corporate synergy, linking it to SpaceX. It's like killing two birds with one stone, or I guess more accurately, killing one bird that no one really liked. Tweets will now be known as X's, which is appropriate because, like tweets, who doesn't have an X or two from a few years ago you regret? And after the break, try that in a small town. Welcome back. Country singer Jason Aldean's controversial new single, Try That in a Small Town, debuted at number 2 on the Billboard chart. The song has been criticized for its pro-gun lyrics, with some calling it a pro-lynching song. And its music video was taken off of CMT because it featured a Tennessee courthouse where a black teen was lynched in 1927. Aldean defended the song, saying he didn't mention race a single time in the lyrics, and that all the news footage used in the music video showing riots and violence was real, though some pointed out some of it didn't come from America and was stock footage. So is the song racist? Pro-violence? Honestly, the most upsetting thing about all the controversy around this song is that it's distracting from the main reason to hate it, which is that it sucks. It's like Aldean made this song by asking ChatGPT, what if we combine the most overused country music cliches about loving guns in small towns with a ripoff of the Beat It riff? All this controversy only helped Aldean as it brought attention to the song and helped it climb the music charts. Between this and the success of Sound of Freedom, the lesson is that anything liberals tell people not to watch or listen to is going to be a smashing success. In totally unrelated news, Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, and the ghost of Ruth Bader Ginsburg all said no one should watch America Uncovered. It's kind of like how all the conservatives said the Barbie movie was woke trash. Despite this, Barbie had a monstrous, record-breaking opening weekend. Which reminds me, Mitch McConnell, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and the ghost of Ronald Reagan all said no one should watch America Uncovered. You call it a culture war? I call it free advertising. Speaking of culture wars, the Temecula Valley Unified School District Board in Southern California approved a state-mandated K-5 social studies curriculum it previously rejected twice over concerns of material that wasn't age-appropriate. Board President Joseph Komrosky objected to the inclusion of gay politician and activist Harvey Milk in the lesson plan, calling Milk a pedophile for allegedly beginning relationships with multiple underage teen boys while he was in his 30s. My main problem with Milk is that Sean Penn won the Oscar for Best Actor for it that year, when the award should have obviously gone to Mickey Rourke for The Wrestler. Why aren't we teaching that to kindergartners? Komrosky approved the curriculum after Gavin Newsom threatened to fine the school district $1.5 million if they didn't. Komrosky said, "Governor Newsom, I act independently and authoritatively from you. If we do not provide the curriculum, I want everybody to hear this, we will literally be sued." Newsom said he would launch a civil rights investigation into the district, calling them extremists who want to control the material used to teach children. Probably because he thought, if any extremist is going to control material used to teach children, it's going to be me. And on the other side of the culture war in schools, Vice President Kamala Harris called Florida's Board of Education extremists, there's that word again, for backing what are being called benchmark clarifications for middle schoolers to receive, including instruction on how slaves developed skills which, in some instances, could be applied for their personal benefit. Are they trying to point out the positives of slavery? That's like saying, I've lost 40 pounds. Boy, I'm sure lucky I got AIDS. However, one of the academics who helped create this curriculum called Harris's criticism categorically false, saying it's only those who don't take the time to read it who will misstate it.
It was never said that slavery was beneficial to Africans. What was said, and anyone who reads this will see this with clarity, it is the case that Africans proved resourceful, resilient, and adaptive, and were able to develop skills and aptitudes which served to their benefit, both while enslaved and after enslavement.
Yes, the co-creator of this curriculum was black. Are Harris and Democrats going to say he's an agent of white supremacy just because he's a conservative? Oh wait, never mind. Dumb question. Of course they would. But if you're worried Florida schools aren't pushing a conservative narrative, you can rest easy. The Florida Department of Education approved materials from the conservative nonprofit Prager University, which isn't an actual university, to be used in schools at teachers' discretion. They say it's because it aligns to Florida's revised civics and government standards. Because the most important agenda in schools is a political agenda. This would be like if California allowed lesson plans designed by the Young Turks. Actually, I shouldn't say that. It might give Gavin Newsom ideas. So school curriculums are either considered woke or white supremacy. The American education system has become such a biased, raging dumpster fire, it couldn't be put out by all the water on the planet and even across the universe. So what do you think about the stories we covered this week? Leave your comments below, and if you want to help us deliver nonpartisan news, support America Uncovered by going to patreon.com/America Uncovered. All it takes is as little as $1 or more per episode to help us keep making great videos. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching.